And there we are. Hello, everybody. We are live on Facebook, on the Pod Brother Nation page. And I have here with me Old Skool. We're going to chop it up about the world of stand-up comedy. How you doing, my brother?
I'm fine, man. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, man. I love your banner too. You got the old school like cassette tape that used to go on the jam box, you used to do the mixes on and then record onto the cassette and then
Yeah,
put like
yeah.
12 fresh D batteries in
And
the
it's a work in progress.
yeah.
Try to
I'm
get some-
I remember those days, man, the old school
yeah,
stuff. That was
yeah,
a
yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
yeah. It
So
was.
So you are a stand-up comic. You've been in the game for how long? What qualifies you to be old school in the stand-up game?
Well, I mean, I grew up. I was when I was in high school, I was class pest. I didn't actually be crowned class pest, but my first manager in comedy was going to school with me at the time, and he took my name off of most popular and put it under class pest, and I won by a landslide. I had no idea I was even running for
That's
it. And
cool,
um,
man.
and ever since then, and then I grew up with Robin Harris. So
I love Robin Harris.
yeah, I grew up with him, man. And I fell in love with what he was doing when he was doing comedy, and I just everybody kept telling me all in life, in my early part of life, to try it if I really wanted, because I thought I was funny. I thought I was, and they told me to try it if it was something. And then my mother, I remember telling me before she died that if it was something I wanted to do in life, to make sure I tried it and not just thought about it all life. So I threw my hat in the ballot, in the thing, and I just started doing it, man. And I had my first show at my house. I won't tell you anything about that show, but somebody stole the recording. I
Oh
had the
no.
video. Somebody stole it. I don't know who, but I haven't seen it or heard of it, and I don't really talk about it much because of it went okay, but I invited a lot of people to my house. And since, that was in 1996. So that's as long as I've been doing it since 1996. I
Cool,
only
man.
started, I only started producing shows because, you know, I know how hard it is, after experiencing it myself. I know how hard it is for a comic or a comedian to get to the point where they're getting paid.
Hmm.
And so I thought I could help people a lot if I started producing shows. Also, I would be able to get paid too
Yes.
for
Yeah.
producing. So it's taking so long for me to get some money or even get stage time. And going up at 1 o'clock when I got there at 8 or 7, and I don't go up until 1 or 2 o'clock, and there's only like crickets in the audience. I
Right.
know what it feels. And then you have to go to work the next day. I
Right.
know how it feels. And I just think that a lot of people, I mean, there's a lot of talent in the industry. A lot of people who are doing comedy, of course, but I think a lot of them should really be getting paid a lot sooner than they do.
Right. Yeah,
And I
no,
kind of
I
want to,
I go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I kind of want to help people with that. I kind of want to, be an advocate while I'm doing this. So, you know, I'm just trying to do something to help some people. You know,
Yeah, you're a good dude, man. I mean, you kind of figured it out early that you need to put some money in your pocket early in the game, number one, because charity starts at home. You can't help others until you can help yourself first.
that's correct.
As a lifeguard, you always have to assess a single drowning is always better than a double drowning.
Right, right,
And
exactly.
and even though your intent is to save both of your lives. So yeah, I got in that game early, man. I figured that out very, very early in the game. Um, I did really well my first time out on my open mic, and the owner of the club, it was the Comedy Cottage in Chicago back in the mid 80s.
Mm.
and he was so impressed. You know, I've been DJing since I was in like 7th grade, high school. You know, before there were even, you know, turntables, I was the one putting the records on and flipping them and doing the arm, and we had 2 separate record players to keep the music going before even DJing was DJing. And so I had that, you know, work the crowd, comfortable, charismatic kind of
Yeah.
stage presence already. And plus, I was a really good dancer. You know, I was following Michael Jackson and James Brown and doing all their moves. So, you know, I would put the music on, get the dance floor packed, and then I would go out and I would dance myself. And then, you know, I would be doing announcements and, you know, for the parties and this and that. So, you know, when I rolled into comedy, I was very, very, very comfortable on stage. And I already had a few little sticks from the DJ stuff. And I did right out the bat, I did very well. I wished I had taped that show because it was like, it was really killer. And the owner was like, "How long you been doing this?" Because that was amazing. And I said, "Well, this is my first time." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "You come back, you put together 15 minutes of material, I'll hire you to MC my shows at 25 bucks a show." This was back in 86, 87. So,
Wow.
or 85. So I did. I went back every Sunday, open mic. I put together 15 minutes and he hired me to MC the shows. It was 125 bucks a week. The shows were Thursday through Sunday. And I was like getting paid, like, you know, like a month in. And I thought that was amazing because
Right,
once I
right.
got in it and I realized guys still haven't get, there were guys doing open mics for 5, 6 years and hadn't seen a dime. And I was just like, oh, I realized I am super, super, super lucky.
Yeah.
And I had enough of my planets lined up that I was able to bring enough marketable talent to the stage where the owner of the club recognized that I want to put some money in this guy's pocket to motivate him. And at the time, I was a truck driver for Teamsters, and I drove a box truck that did deliveries to restaurants and hospitals and schools and businesses and catering companies and churches. So it was a food distribution company. So I hit a lot of hotels, restaurants, banquet halls, and
Right.
and in doing that, I met a lot of like restaurants and hotels and all these places that had these huge banquet rooms. Nobody was doing nothing. These places were in like ass wipe nowhere, rural, you know, no place.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was like, "Hey, you know, you guys interested in doing a comedy show? I could bring in my comedy buddies and then you guys keep the food and drink and we'll keep the door." And they were like, "Yeah, we don't have to pay for it and we could get everybody in town to come out for this." And that's what I did. So my early comedy was my own shows and people at the comedy club, my comedy buddies like, "Where you been? Like we haven't seen you." And I was like, "Dude, I'm producing my own shows and I'm making bank right
Right.
now."
Right.
Bank,
That's
because some of
good.
these banquet halls would hold like 500 people and they would be like in the middle of nowhere. There'd be Elks Club, you know, or Moose Lodge,
Yeah.
and it would be in the middle of nowhere. So this stand-up comedy shows coming in from Chicago, and you know, 2 hours away with like really good comics, and it would be packed. And then from doing
Yeah.
that, I was able to roll into the college market and then I was doing the college shows, and those shows had some serious budget. So I wasn't
Yeah. Yeah.
really even I wasn't a matured comic yet, but I was making headliner money like right from the beginning. So I appreciate, you know, where you were coming from and like, you know what, producing shows is basically what you need to do if you want to put some money in your pocket. But it also gave me hours and hours of stage time because it's my show and I want to put together an hour, you know, I'm not doing it 5 minutes at a time every week.
Right. Exactly.
That's the other advantage of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You could
More
put
time to
together,
write and everything. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And then see, there's just so many people doing comedy now, man. Everybody can't get like you created those opportunities for yourself, and now you're in a position to help people as well. But a lot of people never get to that point
right?
because they're so busy being on the grind and everything.
Hmm.
And I also learned early, I don't know if I should say anything about it, I won't say where. I won't name the place. But I found out early in the game also. See, I started at the Comedy Store. I said the name at the Comedy Store with Cat Williams and a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, along the way, I found out that there probably is some sort of casting couch, like people always referred to. So it's not always who you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I I wasn't able to. I was never able to be a Comedy Store regular, which I really, really tried for. And I kept seeing what was going on, and it was like just wow. So I never became a Comedy Store regular.
Right.
But I've had them chanting. I've left the stage, and they won't give you the tapes when you do really well. They won't give you the videotapes. They won't let you copy it yourself. You can't videotape, but they wouldn't give you a copy of it when you did well. And 2 different nights in the main room, I had them. I think it was I want to say right around 2008, 9. I had them on 2 different occasions. I had the main room audience chanting my name when I got off stage. And I just thought that was so beautiful,
Right.
but I could never get a copy of it.
Right.
But I did find out that it's not always who you know in comedy. So it's just a lot. There's a lot of obstacles before, and with it being so many different people, I just feel like they need help. I mean, they need an advocate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of want to be. So
Yeah. Yeah. I went into the store back in 1988. And I mean, I remember walking by Eddie Murphy. I remember walking by Robin Williams. I remember walking by Billy Crystal. I was able to get a spot on one of the small stages, like, right off the bat. I got a picture with Andrew Dice Clay. Like, we're both, I think I'm like 28, he's like 29 or something, right there inside the store. And from the very, very beginning, I recognized the kind of toxic culture that was there at that time, which was really kind of the beginning of the serious toxicity. And I recognized it.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went like, you know what? I really want to get in this room and I really want to work it, but I think now is not the time for me because I'm not really trying to sign up for any of that stuff. But
Right, exactly.
and I just kind of stepped back. And then when I moved out here in 03, I went back. I got a guest spot on somebody's show. Did really well, just like you, but the toxicity was still in play. And I was like, you know what? Let me just step back. And then like about a month ago, I went to the Podfest in Orlando, and I met the CFO, Bob Wheeler, who was a super nice guy. He has his own podcast. He's a very funny dude. He was there to get ideas and to get on people's podcasts and have people on his podcast. And we got a chance to sit down and chop it up for hours. I did an interview with him on my podcast about the flavor of comedy, the culture of comedy, where it is, where the Comedy Store is now. And there is a serious attempt to, I mean, once Mitzi passed and, everything kind of got flushed out with, the family and the new owners and whatnot, there is an attempt to change the culture of all that toxicity. And so now is the time for me. And I think now probably is the time for you to kind of circle back around and get back in the mix. And I'm looking forward to going over there and seeing, what the Pod Brother can do with the Comedy Store. Things change, times change, the culture and the environment change. But here's what I do know. I've been in this business for 40 years, and there's always going to be a level of some toxicity. I don't care if you own a club, if you're a club booker, if you're a national agent, if you're doing a one-off, there's always seems to be, a level of exploitation and toxicity in this game. And that's because this is the only business where the exploitation can happen spontaneous and instantly in a individual one-off that you can multiply thousands of times. Think about any other industry, you're not able to do that because there's such a process to try to get in there. You don't have access to so much prey. Whereas you might have 1,000 people go through your door trying to get on stage time in a week. And what other business has 1,000 people coming to the door trying to apply for a job as counter help, or a hospital, or a doctor, or construction, or whatever? And it's not the type of job that you could hang a carrot of exploitation anyway, because the job doesn't pay that much, doesn't come with any kind of perks as far as notoriety or fame or limelight or free drinks or sexual hookups from fans in the audience. They know that they have some really titillating carrots to dangle, and because of that, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything.
Anything, right?
And I mean anything. You will, like, for stage time, you'll do whatever. For a 5-minute set, you'll do whatever, and you don't find that in any other jobs. So the fact that the opportunity to be exploited and the excitement of the end game, if you can get on that stage, creates a real carnivore type atmosphere in the industry. So you have to know how to navigate that, and you have to understand what you're signing up for. I teach a stand-up comedy class, and one of the first day, I'm like, look, here's what you're signing up for. Before we even go into any techniques, any paradigms, any styles, setups, punchlines, any of that stuff, it's like, know what you're signing up for. Know where you stand before you even take the first step into this septic tank, because you're gonna get your Nikes dirty. They're gonna get dirty. If you're smart, it'd be a little shit just on the bottom. If you're not smart, you're gonna be you'll need an hazmat suit. Because you're gonna get some shit on you. Yeah. And some people, I mean, they're lucky. They have huge families that can protect them. 20 Ways to Tuesday. They got money, they got trust funds, they've got connections, they've got, industry hookups. There are people who have a much easier road and can leapfrog over all that with the right name and the right money, the right hookup. I'm not saying like every single person, but
there are a few,
if you're from Ohio and you get off the Greyhound bus with $35 in your pocket, then you might want to take a workshop and put together a game plan on how you want to approach this, because those are the ones that they really are gunning for. So, but I think you might want to take a second look at the store and just see where it lands for you. But I think that, after having some really brilliant conversations with Bob Wheeler, who's the CFO, and he's been there for 20 years, so he's seen it all. He's seen everything. So if anybody would know that there's a shift in the culture, it would be him. And so, very nice guy. I was excited to meet him. He's going to have me on his podcast at some point. I'm going to have him back on my podcast. But it's, you've been in the game long enough to have experienced that, and that experience alone allows you to help other people kind of navigate, like, what they're signing up for.
Yeah, exactly. Also, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I may go over there again. I don't know, because I'm kind of cool with the production part of this now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of winding it down because I've been doing stand-up for so long. So I just want to concentrate more on helping people. So
Right.
I probably will at some point, like maybe toward the end of the year, think about, I'm contemplating just producing alone so I can concentrate on filming because I want to get into filming. And I still want to help people. So I want to still go through with my talk show or podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which I'll have you on too once I get it set up. But I want to do those things so I can help as many people as I can, because I really think I still think that comedians or comics, whichever is best to say, should be getting paid a lot sooner in their careers. And I want
Yeah.
to help with, I want to
Well,
help them achieve that.
well, that's one of the reasons why I created tippingcomedians.com is so that comedians can actually get tipped from the audience if they like them. So you had a show where people were chanting your name. Imagine if tipping comedians existed back then, your name was in the drop-down menu, and you were able to get tips from everybody in the audience, from a phone.
Yeah,
I mean, you probably would have walked out of there with a couple G's.
Yeah.
And that's got nothing to do with the ticket that they pay. It had nothing to do with 2-drink minimum. That's got nothing to do with any of that. It's a completely 100% separate from what they had to pay and what they had to buy once they got in. And, I started getting tipped about 20 years ago. And it was because I would definitely pump up tipping the bartender and the waitress and because I would make jokes about tipping the waitress because I wanted to hook up with them or whatever. It turned into a thing, and so I started making fun of people in the audience who look like they tipped and look like they don't tip, so I'd be like, the wealthy looking white guy who was kind of a Harvard Ivy League looking dude. I'm like, but dude, look, I know you got a trust fund, man. You should be tipping everybody. Your busboy should be getting a tip from you. As a matter of fact, the dishwasher. I'm like, who in here want to see this asshole tip the dishwasher? The whole crowd would go crazy. I'm like, hey man, go in there, bring the dishwasher out here. What's his name? Jose, get Jose. Come out. Jose would come out with his dishwashing gloves on, apron, not knowing what the hell's going on. He walk out, and then like I'd have this dude like tip him, and he like would tip him like $100, and the place would go nuts. Then dishwasher's like, "What's this for?" It's like it's for washing dishes. You just got a tip.
Wow.
And so, but because of my shows and because people actually would tip the bartenders and the waitresses more, they would come up to me afterwards like, man, I make more on tips on your show because you're doing them tip jokes than any other shows. Like, you got to come back, And so that helped me get back into the spots. And once I realized the power of that, then I just would really like start pushing, the material on tipping the staff and tipping area. And I would come up with ridiculous people to tip. And then this one lady was like, man, you're hysterical. You should get a tip too. And I'm like, yeah, she get a tip too. I mean, the show is about me. It's like, we're the ones that's making the show. Wasn't for us, there wouldn't be a show. Yeah, so we should get tipped. Right. And so then people started tipping me, and she went around and she just collected like tips. And, I ended up with like $300-400. It was awesome. And so I just kind of every once in a while, I would pull that out. And then you know how it is. Sometimes you get these hell gigs in the comedy club environment. It's just not conducive for stand-up. And people back in, I don't know if you remember this, but people back in the 90s were throwing up shows anywhere. And you had shows at sports bars with bowling alleys and pool tables and TVs and the games going, and they had the bachelorette parties and the this and the that weren't part of the show. They didn't even know a show was going on.
Exactly.
And you're fighting against all of this stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna switch this around, and I'm gonna just, I'm gonna do my penalty game, for this show. And basically, I just divided the room into two for one team and the other team, and I had them write penalties, and each person had to do the penalty if their team got the penalty, and that turned into my comedy show. So I kind of like revised, my my penalty game into my comedy show. Whenever I had a hell room, I would just pocket the show and then break out the penalty game, and I would play the penalty game for that particular environment, because stand-up's not working. It's not going to work.
Right.
And
Right.
then on the penalty cards, what I would do is I would write on half those cards, you had to tip the bartender, you had to tip the waitress, or you had to tip the busboy, or you had to tip one of the staff members, you had to buy a drink for a cute girl, or you had to do the hokey pokey, out on the sidewalk, you just stupid stuff. But half of those penalties were tipping. And so, I took a potentially hell comedy gig situation and turned it into like a sports bar comedy penalty game tipping show. And that's when I was just like, okay, this is fun, this is cool. And then when the internet came along and all of a sudden online e-commerce, that's when it all came together. It's like, I can do the podcast with the penalty game, Ref Kimbrough. I can do tippingcomedians.com, and I can combine that all together where I can do a comedy penalty game with Ref Kimbrough, and have tipping comedians, and you can tip Ref Kimbrough on tipping comedians. And I'm happy to add you in the drop down menu as a comedian that can get tipped on my show, on my podcast. So I say all that to say I want to give you a formal invitation to be on that drop down menu so that you can get some of those tips too. Now, full disclosure, the comedians get 80%, and the 20% goes to PNN Academy, which is where I teach my stand-up comedy workshops, and I give away a lot of scholarships for that. So just so you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. When you do shows and when you do podcasts, everybody always wants to know like the shittiest part of your experience, your hell gig. They never want to know what's the coolest thing that you did. They always like, okay, when did you eat your ass and what did that feel like? But I want to know, like, okay, you just described one of the best shows you ever had where they were chanting your name. Give me a show where you were just, the planets were lined up, everything was just kicking, people were just busting stitches in their stomach your whole time on there. You had the audience in the palm of your hand. You could have ran for president after that show. Yeah, well, give me one of those shows. Give me one of those moments.
I'll give you two. One was in the belly room at the Comedy Store. I want to say I used to DJ at the Comedy Store in the belly room too. And it was one of those nights I was DJing, and the lady, the producer let me on early, when normally I went on like at 12 or 1 after everybody had gone. I DJ'd all night and I went on late. But one particular night, I can't remember exactly the date, but I will tell you it was 2004 in the belly room. And that was the first time that they chanted my name. That was the first time it was in the belly room. And then in 2008, I'm gonna say 2008 or 2009, in the Comedy Store, at the in the main room, was the first time that they chanted my name in the main room. And they actually got upset with the producer. And she was the same producer from the belly room. She had me on their show in the main room, and they got mad because they turned the music on while I was on stage, because they say I ran the light, which I had never intended to do that. I didn't know I did that. I really don't think I did. I think they gave me light too soon, or they stopped my set too soon. And the audience got really upset. They didn't want to even stay there unless they let me back on stage. And of course they couldn't do that. So that was like just the greatest. I had producers in the audience telling me to come do their show. I got cards from everybody, and they were saying they'd pay me and this and that. I thought that was the greatest. But the name chanting started in the belly room in 2004. I forget what day it was, but it was in August.
That's
And
awesome.
that's something I always remember. But the fact was, they don't let you record at the Comedy Store. So I don't
Right.
have either one of those three. And those were the three greatest shows I've had.
Yeah, that's a bummer. I mean, that's one thing about going on the road too, is you get to record all your shows, and every once in a while you get a gem and you have it on tape. Um, and that's one of the reasons why I'm able to do my documentary film. I've got over 500 tapes over there on that shelf of my comedy over the past 40 years. And I got some gems in there, man. I really do. I mean, I'm talking shows where, it's just like 2 or 3,000 people in the audience,
Wow,
5,000 people.
I've never had that size audience.
What's the largest audience you ever had?
Um, it was, I want to say 857 people. It was it was in Inglewood in the Miracle Theater. It was for a gospel play, and I did intermission for the gospel play.
Hmm.
So it was a clean set. It was actually two sets. One was 20 minutes, and I changed clothes and came back and did another 25-minute set to close the show out for them.
That's cool.
And so in the last, so what they did, I did so well. I had about a 72-year-old woman that was wheeled up to me in a wheelchair after the show. And I was almost in tears. I was so happy about that. I felt so humbled. She came up to me. They her family wheeled her up to me, and she asked me to sign her program thing. And she told me, she said she's never laughed in all her 72 years. She never laughed that hard, and told me thank you. And
That's
that was like the highlight. That was just great for me. It was 800, and it was the first time I ever did clean comedy. And it went well. I was still shocked. I didn't know it was going to go that well. I wrote the whole set the night before because two nights prior they had a dress rehearsal for the play, and they invited me to dress rehearsal. So I thought I was just watching them. Then at the end of dress rehearsal, they wanted me to go up and they wanted to hear my material.
right.
And my material sucked, of course. So I had to write a whole set, these two whole sets that night after rehearsal, because the next night we started the show, and it was like, you're gonna be on your own. And if you don't do well, you might not get paid. And I was like, so I stayed up the entire night and created this set. And it was some of my best writing. Of course, it had to be, because I didn't want to embarrass myself in front of all those people.
Right.
They were like,
Wow.
we're gonna just put you out there. Oh, huh? They were just gonna put me out there and make me do, be on my own. So I created a good set, and everything happened for me.
That's cool, man. That's a great story.
Man, that was crazy.
Yeah. What about your worst day, your worst nightmare? Every comic has one.
Um,
That's
well,
like when you just want to die.
oh,
Yeah. It's
I
like
got
it's like from the stage to your car is the longest walk of your life.
it was 2006, I think 2006. This guy found out about me through a friend of mine, and he worked where I worked at, but in a different department. But he contacted me and said he wanted me to do his mother and father's anniversary party. And this party was a 75-year anniversary party. They'd been married for 75 years. So he told me it had to be kind of clean and everything. And it was at the Proud Bird. And so it was an all Black audience. It was all Black, people, the family. And so I started about 5 minutes into the set. Now I had the mother and father laughing. They were laughing all through. But the youngsters started heckling me because it wasn't spicy enough for them or whatever. And I tried to continue with my set, but they just kept on. And then instead of me going back and forth with them, I just cut my set. In other words, I bombed. I bombed. And I still demanded my money. But I walked away feeling, I mean, that was the worst feeling I ever had in it. And
Yeah.
I bombed in front of a black audience in the
Yeah.
hood, basically. It was like just, wow, I felt really bad. And of course, he talked about me at work the next day. Or the next week.
So you had the water cooler follow-up review.
Yeah, it was bad, man. It took me a while to get people to come to my shows after that.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute to recover from those shows.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like local, if it's like close to your home and everybody knows you, and then every time, they see you at Ralph's, to be like, oh, that's the dude, man. He ate it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I work cruise ships a lot. And the cool thing about dying on the road is nobody at home knows you died, because you'll never see those people again. They'll never see you again. And this was back before the internet and before cell phones, and people could kind of capture your failure and post it. But I had a couple shows, man. I had a show on a cruise ship once and I usually do very well on the cruise ships, but I had a joke about swimming with the stingray and about messing, because I'm scuba certified. I got scuba certified while I was on the cruise ship. So I could get involved with some of the scuba diving excursions.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to take advantage of every possible amenity that these cruise ships had to offer. And a lot of people were inviting me on these dives, and I couldn't go because I wasn't certified. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get certified. And so I can go out and dive with some of these passengers. And in doing that, I would, we're comics. We're always going to write material about our experiences and what we're going through. So I had this whole scuba dive set. And one of the bits was about me messing with the stingray. And while I'm messing with the stingray, a shark comes over and he's trying to mess with me. So me and the stingray was in the sand, selling in, looking up at the shark. And Stingray was like, here he is right here, man. He been messing with me all day, Scuba Steve. So that joke kills. And when I say kills, like on a cruise ship of 2,000 people, it's a long laugh and an applause break, because it kills. I do a build up. I have a lot of little inserted laughs along the way with my little comedic antics and my little scuba dive vocabulary and all that inside scuba community vernacular. So, people got it. And it just killed. And I would open with that because I would want to open strong with something that they could relate to. Then I would go into the rest of my act, and I would close, with one of my strongest bits. And I open with that bit, dead silence, bro. I mean, dead. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? This bit kills. This is the bit that starts my laugh track, and I'm getting nothing. And the panic is starting to set in. So I'm like, okay, I just need to get to the first laugh. And what happens when you panic and you start racing through your material, all your funny beats, all your timing, everything that makes the joke work now is not going to work, because you're fast tracking to get to that laugh. And all that stuff is what makes that last laugh work. So because I'm fast tracking and panicking, none of the setups, tags, none of the bits, nothing's working. And then when I finally get to the punch, the whole me and the stingray thing, I got nothing.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, I started hearing like hissing, because it's a cruise ship. People aren't going to be rude, they're in their tuxedos, they're in formal night. They're not gonna be like, you suck, you know. They're trying to act sophisticated. They're trying to be cool. They're at the opera. I just happen to be the show. I'm the Tanner. I'm the Tanner comic. So nobody, but there is this, there's this, there's like groans and hissing, and I'm just like, oh man. Now I'm like, okay, let's scrap that. But that's a 10-minute bit. So I'm 10 minutes in eating my own ass on this show. Now I'm like, okay, let me get to the real funny stuff. I will eventually get them.
Right.
And so I'm going into my stuff, and because I had iced them out by that time, even that stuff wasn't working. I wasn't getting anything, nothing. Wow. And then the cruise director actually came on like 10 minutes early, cued the band started playing, and I just like, look, I'm like, okay, they're playing me off. This is cool.
Yeah.
they can see me dying up here. And so they played me off, and the cruise director did some corny little cruise director jokes to kind of fill the time. And then the band played. And then I walked off. I'm like, I'm sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. And the cruise director said, well, you probably didn't know, but Steve Austin died yesterday from a stingray accident. You remember the crocodile dude?
Oh, Steve Irwin,
Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin had died like a week before. I didn't know it because I was out on the ship for like 6 weeks, and it was really big in the news, and it was really big anyway. So people thought I was being insensitive by making fun of Steve Irwin because I mentioned him in the set.
That had been a long time joke of yours that you already had in your Wow.
And I didn't know it. I didn't know he died last week. You know, that's killer bit for a black scuba diver on the cruises. That's killer material.
It was killer.
It literally killed me. And then he told me afterwards, like, yeah, he goes, Steve Irwin died, and that's why they were like, you know, they thought you were insensitive. How could you be making jokes about Steve Irwin? And he just died like days ago. It's like, you're an asshole. I was like, oh man. And it's not like the jokes were directed at him. I just happened to mention him because I would do the fake Crocodile Dundee accent about he and I blowing bubbles, and the joke wasn't really even about him, but because he was like an animal dude and I was doing material on stingrays and sharks and stuff, it kind of worked, you know? And my show was early in the week, bro. These are 7-day cruises, right? So that was we got on Saturday. That cruise was a Saturday to Saturday out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. And so my show was Monday night, which is kind of a sweet spot because people are past their seasickness. They're into vacation mode. They've kind of settled into their cabins. They kind of know what to expect, how it's going to be. So Monday night is probably one of the best nights to do a show on a 7-day cruise when you go Saturday. Just a tip for you.
Right. Okay.
Because by the end of the week, they're exhausted. A lot of them, you know, stay in their cabins because they got sunburned, or they're drunk from the Jolly Rogers, or they've been out in the sun. So this is just before they go out and get sunburned, but it's right after they had some time to kind of settle in to the cruise thing. And man, you want to talk about 5 days of a leper walking around that shit. I was literally a leper. People would like go to the other side of the hall and just kind of walk by me like, and you could see the body language was kind of like, oh, we don't want to get too close. We might catch the cooties.
That's funny.
And then some people even came up to me afterwards and they were just like, wow, dude, that was brutal. It's like, so what do you do in a situation like that? It's like you do, well, you saw what I do. You hang in the pocket until the band plays your ass off. That's what you do. You eat your own ass because you're a professional.
I remember some of them nights, man.
You got contracted to do an hour. You better not do a second short because they definitely will not pay you. And you getting paid in international waters cash by a foreign company, man. You better do that time. They don't care. and I ate it, man. It was the worst feeling, and I
Yeah,
couldn't leave. I was stuck on the ship for those passengers until they got off and a new group got on, and then I had to completely retool that whole bit,
yeah,
so that it took Steve Irwin out of it. I focused more on the shark and the scuba diving stuff, and I didn't. It took like a couple years for me to circle back around to do
yeah.
that bit, but
Wow.
that I'll never ever forget that show. I will never forget it. It was brutal. And
Well,
and
that's
and the
a good.
thing is, it's like you're famous on a cruise ship because everybody knows the entertainment. Every single person knows who the entertainers are because you're in the schedule, you're on the program, you're on the TV that's scrolling in the cabins. So they know who you are. So no matter where you go on the island, you think you finally get to an island, you get some reprieve, you get out there, and then like half your ship is walking down the street.
Yeah, yeah.
They're pointing at you. And that the dude that ate it, man, he fucking sucks. There's no escape.
Yeah, man.
Um,
The
but
good news is everybody kind of goes through that. I think at some point they may not say, but everybody has a night or two like that.
yeah,
If you do stand up long enough, you have nights like that. I mean, I just and like you, I mean, I I remember them. I mean, I remember those more than I remember the better sets.
right.
I remember those more. It's just you just never want to repeat it, or you try to guard against it. It's like your whole defense mechanism becomes a new way of writing. Kind of, it's like it's really weird. It's just you start thinking the jokes differently. It's just
Yeah.
to make sure you don't do that again. Like it's
Yeah. Well,
it's a learning thing.
yeah, and that's and most of those stories on the way up. When as I talk to famous comedians, once you're famous and you've got the promoters and you've got the agents and the managers and the PR companies and all the media that are setting up your shows to be successful shows every time because people kind of know what they're getting and all the preparation and the production that goes into it. You don't have those you don't have those disasters like you do when you're on your
Right.
way up,
Yeah.
because there's so many variables and you don't you literally have to win over strangers every single time versus going to a place where people loved your movie and now they get the chance to see you live and have a live moment with you and cherish that for the rest of their lives. No, they come in arms crossed, brows wrinkled, make me laugh, asshole,
Yeah.
and you got to win them. You got to win them. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. That's also what you sign up for, really.
Yep. That's true.
Have you ever had a moment where, like, somebody recognized you from like a killer show that you had, like at Ralph's or something, and be like, "Hey, Old Skool, man, I saw you at the whatever. You were awesome." Uh,
Uh,
and you were like, "Yeah," and the cashier at the Ralph's is like, "Oh, you a comedian? You're so like, where are you playing next? I got to come see you." Ever had one of those moments where just like out of the blue, some stranger just comes up and just gives you, you know,
I
some
had
props?
I had two moments like that. One I'll talk about. The other I can't really. I have to talk to you off air about.
Okay, no
Uh,
problem.
but one I was in the supermarket. I think it was either Ralph's. I think it was Ralph's or Bonds. I think it was Ralph's though, and it was out here by where I live in Reseda. So it was out here, but they were talking about something really. So some show they saw me at in Carson, and it was at a hotel in Carson. It was like one of those shows that I did like at a hotel for like one of my friends who was producing it or something like that, and it was actually like a dance club, and it was like intermission or whatever. They stopped the party, stopped the dance, and the DJ and let me do about 20 minutes. and then they went back to their party style, you know. So it was like that, right in the middle, and I was the second act, and so it worked really well. The first act didn't really work that well, but when I went on, just happened to be, you know, one of those nights that was pretty good for me. And I had really forgotten about it, but it was like, I don't know how many people were there. It was packed. The club was packed. Everybody was clapping and everything. So everybody had a good time. My set. And then I think this lady and her husband were there at the party at the thing. And they, the husband is the one who recognized me. He tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Hey, look, old school like that." And he called my name, and I looked over. I'm like, "Who is that?" You know, I didn't know who it was, and it was somebody over here where I live at. I really don't really, I hadn't been inviting people from where I live because I, you know, had just moved over here. And so I didn't really know a lot of people, but they recognized me from Carson. And that was like about, I think it was like about 2 or 3 months after the show. And they still remembered who I was. They weren't black, so I didn't really think, you know, it was like really shocking. But that happened. That happened. That was, I think it was Ralph's, and I want to say it was two. I had just moved over here, so I think it was like 2005, something like that.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool,
That was
man.
what I
That's
was talking about.
that gives you like that gives you some serious validation, doesn't it? Doesn't that give you like an affirmation?
It's really cool. It's really cool. But I got to tell you, the top was when they was chanting my name at the Comedy Store. Those were the top times, man. I still
Yeah.
remember that like it was yesterday. But only thing I hate about it is they recorded it, but for whatever reason they just wouldn't share. They wouldn't give me a copy, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was willing to pay for a copy. I'm like, that's my best show. Why won't you let me have it?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a brand integrity thing. I get it. You know, being a club owner, being a marketer, being a person who produces, you know, you want to have 100% control over your brand, your images, your shows. You want to be 100% have control of where it's going to end up, where it's going to land. You know, not everybody has the production value that you might have, and you know, it could end up anywhere. So I get that. I get that.
But
I'm not.
my thinking is, if you're not going to use it at all, then why not let me have it?
Yeah, well, they don't want to take the chance of where you're going to put it. That's why
Right,
they
I get it.
keep it.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
I mean, a lot of people before you really screwed that opportunity up because I am sure in the beginning of the store, they were taping people, giving them their tapes and trusting that they would do the right things with them. And you know, the production quality, or if somebody doesn't really know how to edit or hire a producer or an editor or special effect, like they want it to look, you know, Hollywood, like they represent Hollywood. So everything that comes out of everything is supposed to have some production value. And I guarantee you some of those early comics back in the 70s that got tapes, you know, probably wasn't really, that wasn't on their radar. They were just happy to get on stage and have a good night. And they, you know, probably just did substandard quality. So I think a lot of people before you probably ruined that opportunity for those of us who want to get those tapes now. So,
No,
I mean, one of the reasons why I kind of got into film because I would tape my own shows. That's why I've got over 500 tapes over there. And but I would tape it only to go back and watch and make my material better. I wasn't taping it to actually do anything with it
right.
because you know, I put no effort into the lighting. I put no effort into the sound. I didn't have a lav mic. I didn't run a mic to the audience, a mic to me. I basically pulled the sound out of the air from the shitty sound from the venue. So it wasn't anything I was considering being, you know, valuable production quality stuff that I could maybe do something with. But I could go back to the hotel room. I could play it back and I'd be like, oh, that's funny. Like I said something that I didn't realize I said that became a tag in that bit. Or there's something that I said that wasn't funny. I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to move that or wordsmith this or add a beat or subtract a beat. You know, when you are in the less chaotic environment of your hotel room, you can see a lot of those little microscopic nuances that you don't even feel when you're in the middle of your set in front of a live audience. But a
Mhm.
tape captures all that. And so from that, guys would be like, "Hey, can you tape me too?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll tape you, but it's not meant for production or TV. As long as you understand, it's just a tape for you to have so that you can kind of work on your bits." And guys would take those tapes and they'd put them up on cable. It's like, oh man, like it wasn't really meant for that, but okay, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, you can, if it's if it's your brand and it's your production, and you want to control where any of it's going to land, I can see how they can do that, because I do
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah. Uh, yeah.
I guess I could share an experience that I had. I got hired to do um, the Yuck Yucks Comedy Club in Bermuda.
Mm.
This is when they were still there. This was back in the 90s, I believe. And the cool thing about it is I, I was doing a cruise gig. It was one of those 7-day cruises out of Manhattan to Bermuda, back to Manhattan. So it's 2 days to sail there. You had 3 days in Bermuda and then 2 days to sail back. And so right there in Hamilton, right downtown, there was this swanky restaurant that had a comedy club in it. And I went in, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm a comedian on the ship. Who do I need to talk to get booked? And the owner of the club was like, that's me. And I would love to book you. Obviously, if you're working on a cruise ship, you're definitely good enough to be at my club. So you
Right.
got to go through paperwork. I got to get you a visa. You got to have a passport, which I had from working on the ship. The hardest thing about getting people to work in that room is they don't have all the necessary paperwork to leave the country.
Right.
And so it's hard to get good people that are legit. And it's a 2-week gig because of that. So once they get you, then you stay there for 2 straight weeks.
Wow.
And so I did all the paperwork, did all the thing. We set the date. I get back on the ship. A couple months go by. I fly out. I do the gig. I have killer sets, man. Killer sets. I mean, Bermuda loved me because they had one of the one of the funnest things to do there for the locals and the other tourists was to go to the comedy club there.
That's
And
great.
they would have 3 or 4 ships that would be in there at any given time. So it was a really cool, like, touristy kind of, vibe. And so they put your headshots on the wall at this restaurant that was part of the comedy club. And so, I autographed it, gave my headshot, sits up on the wall. So fast forward the tape 20 years later, my friend who owns a $5 million yacht says, "Hey, I got a Learjet coming to pick you up. Uh, I'm going to take you to St. Thomas. We're going to sail my yacht back to Camden, Maine. We're going to do a pit stop in Bermuda." I'm like, "Oh, Bermuda. I used to do a comedy in Bermuda at the comedy club." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever. Sure, you did comedy in Bermuda." I'm like, "No, I did. It was really cool. I used to work the cruise ships." Like, okay, yeah, he didn't really know I was a comedian. He didn't know I had any of that. He just met me through one of his friends at a party in New York. And then from that relationship, he invited me down. I'm like, "No, dude, I'm a professional comedian. Like, you don't even look funny. You ain't no professional comedian." It's like, okay, whatever. It's like, ha ha. Kimbrough says he's fresh to me. It's like he doesn't. He's not even funny. I'm like, we're just on a yacht, just talking. I'm not trying to do jokes or be funny. We're just here, just being people. I'm like, I didn't. You invited me to help you sail it down, so I'm a sailor right now. I'm sailing. Like, okay, all right, whatever. So, so we jump in, we spend a few days in St. Thomas, and we have smooth sailing. The ocean's like glass. I've never seen it like that ever. I mean, as far as you can see, just glass, dead calm.
Wow,
And
that's cool.
beautiful days, beautiful nights. You could see stars and the moon and the clouds and the reflection off of the mirror, which was the ocean. It was the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced in my entire life. we get to Bermuda, and so the captain of the ship's like, "Oh, I know this great restaurant. We'll go in there, and we'll have some great seafood, and then we'll go out on the town." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." So as we're walking, I'm like, "Wait a minute, this is the same area that the comedy club was in." And then we're walking down. I'm like, "As a matter of fact, that's the building that the comedy club was in." And then we walk up. I'm like, "This is the building that the comedy." We go in. We go. I'm like, "This is the place." Right. And the whole time they're just like busting my yeah, okay, whatever. And then we go into the dining room, and lo and behold, they still have 20 years
It's
later, all the comics that performed there's heads still on the walls.
uh,
I go, "That's me, right?" And he looked at me, he was like, "Wow, you really were here." I go, "Yes, I was." And then the owner who still owned it came to me like, "Hey," he's like, this dude is funny." Like the whole restaurant was like, "This guy here is from New York. He's hysterical."
that's cool.
It was awesome. So like the whole everybody, every time I looked up out of my plate, people were looking at me. They're like, "Hey," they look at me, they look at my picture, they look back at me. And it was just one of those moments where everybody that was I was on the yacht with, I mean, and these are billionaires too. I mean, these aren't people, slacky people. This is a $5 million yacht, 80-footer, two masts that we're sailing, you know, across the
Wow.
ocean. So these weren't any like schlucks. These were some very powerful, wealthy people. And to have that moment sitting at that table with them where I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
this
that's
whole
cool.
restaurant's about me right now. You realize
Yeah,
it? It was funny, man.
that's a great story, man. That's cool.
I
Never
don't
had
have
a
any
moment like
videos
that.
of that, but I do have some photos of when I was there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna scan those photos and add those to my documentary film.
Oh, that's cool.
But every once in a while you have one of those star moments. But uh, for us, it's very magical because we're not famous yet. We're not icons, we're not legends. So just to have a taste of it once in your life, to know what it feels like to be the epicenter
Yeah,
of everyone's world. Now okay, this is what celebrities and politicians and dictators feel like, but except it's their whole life every second.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And
So
and it's cool. I think it's better just having it for a minute. I mean, you
yeah,
don't really
yeah,
need it every day,
yeah,
really. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. There's a whole lot of misery and heartache and drama and stuff and backstabbing that comes once you get that, man. People are gunning for you.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's true.
you never have a relaxing moment. You're
Yeah,
constantly looking over your back, and people are judging you, and you don't know who your real friends are.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your show. Let's go into your show a little bit, and I am going to pull up your flyer because I got those kind of skills. I'm going to do a screen share.
I see it behind you.
Um, yeah, I am. Oh, you know what? I have to open it up first. So let me just do that.
Okay.
I'm going to go over here. So tell me about your new adventures with the Ice House. You are one of
I'm
the
really
new.
excited. I'm really excited. I've been trying to when I found out that they were going to reopen and everything, so I went down and talked to them because I have been producing a show at the Ice House since I want to say 2007, 2006 or seven. And up until the end, I mean the beginning of the pandemic when they shut down. Um, and it obviously was successful. It ran from 2006, 2007 to 2020. So I
Right.
think that's a successful show. We had a lot of fun. We had an average of maybe 70, 65 to 70 people, in the audience for a show. Um, so it was a good show. And so they let me back on and I'm really oh oh
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, keep talking. I was just putting up the
Yeah, I
uh
kind of disappeared. So
yeah, yeah, no, I got your flyer up right now. So go
okay.
ahead. Can Continue.
Yeah, so I thought about it, and they told me, you got to get some good talent for the stage here, because they've got new owners, and everybody's new. They rebuilt the place. They just tore it down and rebuilt it from the ground. Nice inside. I'm just really excited, man, because it looks, a lot of people haven't seen it. Many people haven't seen it, but they're asking us. It's a Thursday night, and I want a Saturday night there, so I have to do well in the production this time in order to get my Saturdays back. So I'm just trying to do all the work I can do, everything I need to do to get as many people there. They want us to do, they want us to sell out. And I kind of want to sell out because, that's going to be nice for me if I do. They're going to make it nice for me. So I want to sell out. But one thing I notice about them is they don't really want you to do, like, we had a lot of people getting in our shows, through comp tickets and stuff. And they kind of don't, which I understand. I understand that they just started over. They got a new ownership, and everybody there is basically new. I think they just with their whole, everybody there is new, even the dishwashers. So I'm just gonna.
So like new as in new employees that are
New
not from the old owners.
All the employees are new.
Are any of the folks over there, have they any experience in the comedy industry, or these are people who they have, they're business people that want to open a comedy club and run it more like a business versus more like a comedy club? Is it something kind of like that scenario, or are there any comedy industry people in the administration?
Oh no, they have comedy industry people in the front office there. So as far as the administrative part of it, they have people who have experience in it. There, they do have some of the people in the offices there that were held over from last time. How do I say it? Just a couple, not very many.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the staff, the other staff, like the wait staff or the dishwashers and things of that nature, the people that work in the kitchen, maybe the cooks, all those people are new.
Mm-hmm.
But and they're changing who they allow on stage there.
Right. I see you got a
So
pretty solid lineup too. You got Hurricane, you got Benny Manna. I work with a bunch of these guys. This is a really solid show you got going.
yeah, they emailed the lady uh, emailed me back after I gave her a copy of the flyer, and she told me it was a great flyer and great lineup. So I'm glad they liked it. It met their approval. So I know what to look for the next show. Now I just need to go sell out.
Yeah. Is there any
So,
chance I could get a guest spot on that show, man? This is a tight show. Is there any chance I could get on it?
well, it's booked up. It's booked up. We don't want to overload it and put too many people on. So we got it tight right now to where my co-producer is actually doing a set on there, and I'm just opening the show, and I'm just giving 4 minutes, and then I'm gonna go sit down and get out of the way. And so we got to give the headliner some time, and we got to feature that.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe I can do a guest spot on your next one because
but yeah, that's very possible. You can, it doesn't even have to be a guest spot. You just do you a set.
yeah, no, I would love to. I'd be honored. Uh,
Yeah.
cool, man. Well, your show is on March 30th. Where can we get the tickets?
There's a number on the flyer. That number may change as they were supposed to start opening and actually selling. The tickets are supposed to go on sale today, I think, but that date may change because they said between the 16th and the end of this month They were going to actually have an opening date, and they haven't really called me yet because we're supposed to do a final tour when they open, like right before they get started with everything.
Well, I
And I
appreciate you sending
haven't
me
been
that.
notified yet.
I appreciate you sending me the email of the booker over there about pitching doing my podcast there. And I haven't sent them anything yet, but I think probably this week I'll send them over an email introducing myself and and see if I can schedule a meeting to do my podcast pitch. You had mentioned that you wanted to do your podcast. What would your podcast be about?
Well, I just want to have, and I'm going to do it. So I'll be talking to you about it soon, so you can probably help me with
I'll
it.
help you. Yeah, absolutely.
But
100%.
it's just I'm going to have guests on, entrepreneurs, well, not just young, but just entrepreneurs who are starting businesses. Um, and then I'll focus on entertainers, rising stars, so to speak, or people who are not yet established. And the main purpose of the show is to let people hear their stories of why they came to California or Hollywood, so to speak, to find fame and fortune, or to work to live out their dreams of being in entertainment. And I think there's a lot of stories for people to hear, a lot of different stories. Most of the people are transplants, and they came over here because they wanted a better life, or they wanted to do something that they thought they were good at. They wanted to show their talents and make money. That's a lot of people came over here with those dreams. So some of them worked out, some of them didn't. And I just really think it's a lot of good stories in that. And I want to share those stories with everybody. So that's why I'm doing the talk show.
Awesome.
And at the
Well,
same time, I could advertise for those people. I can have that and so if people want to use their services for whatever reason, they can contact me, and that'll help them out, because it's all about them trying to get paid a lot sooner in their careers. And I think that's part of being an advocate for them.
right. That's very cool, man. Well, I am in your corner. I'm gonna, put your poster up on all my social medias, and I'm looking forward to coming down and checking out your show and supporting you
I
from the
appreciate
from
that.
the audience.
I'm on the
And
30th. I appreciate that, man. I'm trying to get everybody down there.
yeah, I definitely will come down and support, man, for sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
And you get to
appreciate.
see it. You get to see that VIP room I was telling you about.
Oh yeah, yeah, that sounds real cool.
You got
That's a
to see
that's a
that,
brilliant
man.
idea because they can
Yeah,
still party and have fun and be loud, and you don't hear anything. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
disrupt the show. It's
yeah,
just the 100% sound booth of them celebrating their birthdays and listening to the show, laughing at the jokes, and
yeah,
having some fun. And yeah, that's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant
yeah,
idea. I love that. I can't wait to
yeah,
see what that looks like. But also, too, those booths can be individual podcast booths as well.
yeah,
Yeah, you could set up in there and do a podcast during a show, and you could do play by play of what's happening in at the show on your
yeah.
podcast. And you can
Yeah, I
have the
think that's
comics
right.
that are on the show can dip into the booth, and they can
Yeah,
talk about like how the show went.
yeah, exactly. And she did say that she was interested in listening to you. So you should go ahead and make sure you contact her, man. And
Yeah, I
man,
will. I appreciate that hookup, man.
yeah,
I really
yeah,
do. That's some good love. All
yeah.
right, bro. Well, I don't keep you too much. I know you got a show to promote and things to do, and I thank you very much for coming down and kicking it with Ref Kimbrough here on the Pod Brothers show. And man, it's nice to chop it up with an old school as a old school, and I'm excited to see where your career is going to go from here. I think it's going to be up and up, bigger and better things,
I hope
and
so, man.
and you deserved it, you earn it, and it's your time.
Well, thank you, thank you. Um,
Awesome.
um, the
And
pleasure is all mine.
yeah, so where can we find you on the World Wide Web?
I'm at Facebook, uh, Old Skool, 'n' 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 I don't know my handle on Instagram though. I still don't know it. I think it's about. It's
You know, you
not
should
Old
get one
Skool.
of those LinkedIn accounts where you can put all of your social media links in one place and then send everybody to that.
Yeah,
That
yeah, I have
that
to do that.
way,
I'm working on doing that. Yeah,
yeah, that way, you got all of your stuff in one place. And then
yeah,
you just give that one address, and that's all you really need to do.
yeah. That's what I need to do.
It's a
Yeah,
one-stop, shop for all of your social medias, and you just send everybody there.
yeah, yeah,
That way you're good to go with everything that you need to do.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so that's where we can find you. So mostly like Facebook is probably the easiest place to find you.
Yeah, Old School
Just
Entertainment, right?
go look for Old Skool. Just plug in Old Skool is spelled
Okay,
Skool,
oh, right.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have one page because I used to go by SCHOOL and I changed it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I may have that older page still up too. That was some, and I think somebody else started using it or something before I closed it out. So, but it's SKOOL. That's where everything is. So
Skool. So if
yeah,
you plug that in on Facebook, that's pretty much where we can find you.
yes, yes.
Okay.
I also I have well, okay, that's good because I have another page too. That's my real name. Old School is a stage name that I'm using, but it's also under my real name, Robert Ursi.
Okay.
C.
All right. So now we know where to find you. For those of you who are looking to find me, you can find me at podbrother.com. You also can find me at podbrothernation.com. And a lot of the shows that I'm currently doing right now are at the Arc Theater, which is the Arc Cyber Theater in North Hollywood at 5708 Lankershim Boulevard. I'm there every Tuesday. So if you want to come and see Ref Kimbrough and the gang, that's where I will be on Thursday nights is Carol Newell's show. And I'll be there doing some sets, and I'll be there tonight because tonight is Thursday. What else? You can catch me at thepenaltygame.com. And I'm also building a podcast slash comedian comedy coalition. So if you go to Comedy Podcast Coalition, I'm hooking up stand-up comedians with podcasters. And Old Skool, you should get on that, man. We could have you be on some other podcasters' shows. You can get some ideas of how you want to do your podcast from those shows. So you should go there. Go to comedypodcastcoalition.com and then join the database. And then
Okay,
we will
I'll do
try to
that.
get you on some more podcasts.
Sounds good. This was my first one, so
I'm your first podcast.
first one, man. I
Oh man, I'll
appreciate
pop your podcast cherry. I feel honored. I feel honored. That's awesome.
That's good.
All right, brother.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe you'll call me tomorrow.
I'll call you tomorrow. Oh, that's funny. All right, brother. Thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate you. And
Thank
we'll
you for
do it
having me.
again.
Thank you.
Anything I can do to help you get your podcast up and running, that'll be awesome. And then once I get my podcast footprint in the Ice House, I'll definitely have you as my uh what do you call it? My Batman and Robin. You could be my Robin.
Okay, all right. That's cool.
All right. Thanks a lot, my brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And I
All right.
might see you next Tuesday too.
All right. Yeah, come through. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put you on the drop down menu of tipping comedians too. So
Okay, cool. Thank you.
all right. All right, brother. Peace out.
All right, bye.